been not happening. This is not happening. Really interesting games today. I don't know if we're going to get through them all. The rate I'm going, I'm too analytical today. But a few days ago, last week or something, I had some problems with my connection, and it looks like it's happening again. I don't know why it's doing that. You're back, but I've got this funky connection that will just drop out of nowhere. Even though I'm like on a plugged in non-Wi-Fi connection, it just drops on me. Now we're back. Gotta refresh. So, you gotta refresh. 0 viewers. Nice. Yeah, so I don't think the Bloggy played great. I also think the kind of website where you're paying people to play you, you gotta find the right person like me. I take the games very seriously when I play with my students sometimes. But a lot of title players, they're not going to give a fuck. You know, when they play people, they're just like collecting the money, and it's not interesting. So, just a word of caution when you employ someone to play training games or whatever, you have to make sure they're people that are gonna play their best. And also sometimes I think they'll like take it easy on you. It's kind of like they'll also maybe play weaker than normal, maybe try to milk you into playing more games or encourage you or something like that. I really try to take all my games like, selling myself here. I like my stuff, for example. Bob. Alright, anyway, B4. So what are the other options do we have here? B4 I really don't like. You're worse, you have less space. Can I ask a question? Obviously, you could play Queen F1. Thoughts? I played some ugly positions. I've defended some ugly positions, and I think getting out of this pin is worth considering. I'm not afraid of Bishop takes F3. This is not a problem. I don't think, So I want to know why we don't break this pin. I don't think he's going to take. He's not going to give up his white square bishop. You can break the pin, but you're still screwed. I mean, B4 is not going to change it, is it? This F4 is pretty nasty, actually. It's worth considering, but it still doesn't solve our bigger problem, which is lack of space. Right. Yeah, Mr. Slow, you're right. I think the white has a bad position, and probably B4 is as good a try as any. Yeah. Queen F1 doesn't solve our problems either. So, yeah, I agree. And B5 might be useful. Alright. So, A6, question mark. He apparently had a tactic here. It's a computer tactic, bishop takes B4. Not easy to see, especially in a rapid game. Black plays A6, you play bishop E2, it's still a Philidor. Rook A D8, and now rook E D1. Rook E D1. So saving the other rook for the afterlife. I don't know. I don't see a plan except, continuing on the queen side with A4. Yeah, I mean, Queen F1 is a move 11. I like Queen F1. In general, it's an important resource. I'm not sure I want to put another piece. I guess my point is, I'm not sure we've already got one piece in this diagonal. I'm not sure I want to put another piece in the diagonal. And I get that, Zen chess is defending the base of his pawn chain here, or the backward pawn, but maybe we should just play A4 and see what happens. I don't think this move really does anything. I mean, is black threatening anything? Invasion of the body snatchers? He's not really threatening anything yet. So, we're fine. You can take on e4 either way. This move I'm not in love with. Queen f7. Now, if we give black forever, he's going to build up some kingside attack or something. And now h3, bishop c8. So, okay, h3. Maybe not a bad move. You know, he kind of blocked himself in a little there, but wonder why he didn't play bishop h5. Well, alright, maybe the pin is hollow anyway. Bishop c8, keeping an eye on this guy. I don't have a problem. Black is better. Now a4. And now h6. A natural looking, but slightly weakening move. And that gets the dubious from the computer. And now, interestingly, the computer says a queen g6, king f1. Not easy to find. But if you go to h1, I mean, this is a little more natural. You still have knight h2 in some lines. But I don't think that white ever should have put the rook on e1. E1 to d1. In fact, this is even useful that your queen is protected. Here, 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 here. Yeah. And now knight b8. And dude has c4. You're playing like Bent Larson now. Dude, what happened here? It looks like Larson Geller. Suddenly it's like, whoa, what is black doing? c4. e5 is falling. He's going to have to play knight on bd7. You might even have d4. That looks like conceivably playable. I'm not sure you want to do that though. It looks like white totally turned the tables on the game. And now the engine recommends knight takes f6 and then d4. Okay. So this is the computer's preference. And so the point would be, if pawn takes pawn, what? What now? That's one of those quotes, Thomas Trainson, that we're not sure about. It sounds good on paper. I wasn't sure like which way we go with the queen. Yeah, queen d3. But the queen could be attacked here. We don't have a mate. So where exactly are we going? I'm not certain. Is it queen d2 or queen d3? Queen d2. But you probably look at this and then you reject it because knight c5. And then you look at queen d2 and you're like, well, what does it do? You can take here. But he's chopped up. You know, he has like, he's got a blender, a new blender, and it looks like, you know, he's been testing it out here. So even if you don't have anything immediate, you know, black's structure is, my guinea pigs would munch on that, you know, pretty quickly. Yeah, so he really screwed this up, and now you played bishop a3. Sorry, here. The battle's in the center. Yeah. The center is where it's at. Or just do nothing. You know, you could always do nothing. But if you do absolutely nothing, you might be able to generate some kingside threats. Yeah. This is the wrong idea. Chop, chop, queen e7. Now you're worse on the dark squares and you have a bad bishop. So here's where the grandmaster technique starts coming in. He gets ironclad control of c5, and he's got better dark square bad bishop. No, you made simply a bad positional exchange. Now he has a very comfortable position. Any grandmaster could play. I would probably win here with black as well. At least I would torture white at the very minimum. But I was just wondering, if queen d6, do you have this tactic, knight takes d5, I mean e5? You probably have that. I mean, the question is, are you threatening knight takes e5, followed by queen d8 check, and take his bishop on c8? And if you are, then black needs to play a defensive move. On the other hand, you might be threatening queen a1 as well. Is it possible that black's best move is like king g7 and queen a1, king f6? Yes, that's very possible. And then he's probably going to torture you in this endgame with all your pawns on the wrong color. But he has to be careful. After takes, g4, you missed a shot, I assume, with knight takes e5. Maybe not. Maybe he has a mating attack here. Queen takes e5, queen d8 check, king g7, queen takes c8, check, king here, g3 check, takes. Well, he has at least a draw. As we can see, king g7 was best. Okay. g4, well, I don't like to skip ahead, but h takes g4 dubious. Okay, so the computer likes trading pawns on a6, but it's irrelevant. You missed knight takes e5. Tactics turned off. H takes g, bishop takes, now we don't have this trick anymore. So you play queen d5. And now Grandmaster will torture you in technical endgame. Takes, and you have computer like bishop on c2 that should be transferred to h3 somehow. Good luck with that. a5, king f1, getting in the way of your bishop. King g7, king e2. Yeah, you definitely don't want to get in the way of your bishop. Remember, this is the plan. No, it's not so easy. I mean, your a4 pawn is hanging. I'm just kind of joking around. Black is crushingly better, has an outside h pawn. You're tied down on the white squares, and even if you got bishop h3 in, I'm not sure it would help that much. This is a very unpleasant position. And now b6, trade, go into the end game, and the outside pawn is good, but now you have your own pass pawn. Is this enough to offer any salvation? Well, he can't. It looks like he can't win with the status quo. You know. He might have a b5 break at some point. Put his king on d6, play b5, and then takes and come in. I mean, if you have to go all the way around, I'm saying, in order to make progress, and his king comes over here, you get up to h5, then he goes b5, and if you take it with a c pawn, he takes your d5 pawn. You take on h6, and then he comes in with something like king d4, king c4. You may be too slow, you know. Well, let's see what happens. King f1, king f6, king g2, see king e7, king h3, king d6. Exactly what I said. But you're even slower here than I thought, because king g4, he's getting in b5 before you've even attacked his h pawn. And now you took with the a pawn. But I mean, that seems suicidal. Maybe you had an idea. I would assume you have to take with the c pawn, but I guess it's all too slow. We're just too slow here. It doesn't matter. So, no, I mean, overall, I think there's a factor of intimidation when you're playing Grandmasters. We can see from this game that Black, he wasn't some, you know, scary monster. You know, he played like a human. He made mistakes. Very beatable. But look how good his technique was. You know, in the technique stage, he's really showing his class. Alright guys, we're way too slow here today. I'm going to have to speed it up. Hubner games go very fast, right, Mr. Slow? Hubner games are known for their brief analysis. We've got Hubner, Tal Hubner, and Mr. Slow was saying he has Hubner's book. Mr. Slow, I wanted to ask you, number 9 in Masterpieces of a Book, 25 Annotated Games. Mr. Slow, do you have that book in German? I'm assuming it was published. Should I assume it was published in German? Or should I assume it was published in English? Because English would be... it's only available in English. Wow. It seems like a pity, almost. So, he wrote it. Okay, so it's mostly like... So not a lot of verbal analysis is what I'm getting at. I guess I'm getting here. No German publisher was found. Shameful. There should be a German version of the book, obviously. Now that he's passed away, it probably will happen. Like artists become more famous when they're dead, obviously. But Hubner, being famed for his analysis, his hardcore analysis, probably we're not talking about... David Lynch died. Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't know that. That must have just happened. So Hubner and David Lynch within a 2-week period. And Donald Trump's going to be president soon. Terrible. Alright. Anyway. Yeah, David Lynch's been unwell for a long time. He openly said he loves smoking so much he couldn't stop. He didn't want to stop. He had to, he couldn't work anymore because of his, emphysema or whatever. So, all right. He enjoyed smoke. David Lynch enjoyed a good cigarette, and I can identify with that. Alright, but I quit. E4, C5, knight F3. This is Tal versus Hubner, courtesy of Mr. Slow. Sans immensely in-depth analysis by Hubner. But I want to get the Hubner book. D4, C takes D4, knight takes D4, and now, when was this game played? 76, 73. So this was interzonal. 1973. Now, obviously, Hubner was pretty young in 73. When I think of him, I think of, 80s, really. Late 70s, early 80s. Just before Hubner was at his peak before I started playing chess. So, we're talking late 70s, early 80s. This is 73, so he's still pretty young. Tal is still in a very strong form. A6, Con Sicilian. I just want to say, seriously, you're a young grandmaster, and you're facing the former world champion. It takes some serious cojones to play the Sicilian against him. If I was going to play against Tal, I don't think I would play the Sicilian. I mean. So it's just a perspective, but I don't know what Hubner's repertoire. He's most famous for playing the black side of the Nimzo, but he knows a lot of stuff. Balls of steel. Yeah. I mean, Sicilian against Tal, Khan not the most solid either. No, I mean, you gotta play E4, E5. Tal, no opening safe, but I mean... Or I don't know, the French. Dude, that's how... No, honestly, Tomas, that's how Baffinet, took him down, Play the French. Oh, no, there's a blog about the French being refuted. Caro-Kann, French, or e4, e5. You have three viable options, but Sicilian seems like his strongest suit, probably. Not castling, bro. Leaving your king in the center and not castling against Tal, probably not the best approach, pragmatically speaking. Knight c3, queen c7, and then bishop e2. So Paul Tal. Can you imagine if your name was Paul Tal? Like, the Hungarians aren't named Tal, but if they were, they could be Paul Tal. It's like Paul Mal. That'd be funny. If Benko and Tal were combined. Paul Tal. Yasser calls him Michael Tal. Yasser's a noob. Yeah, but this is good to see. Bishop e2 is a classical move. But, what else can white do, right? Bishop e3 is inaccurate. It's funny, white doesn't have a lot of options here. Bishop d3 probably wasn't considered to be a main line in those days. Players were a little more dogmatic about the openings, and I think this move probably caught on later. If you went back to 1973, Bishop d3 wouldn't be the main move in the opening Explorer, Nefedov. Because people are like, oh, that's a bad square, Cartman. This bishop it's an octopus. It's an amputated octopus, amputated in two directions. That's a modern thing. No, obviously you can play g3, you can play bishop e2, you can play we're running out of suggestions. That's about it. It's funny how few moves there really are. F4 is even Beliavsky wouldn't play that, probably. It's a move. So anyway. Okay, white can't do anything too crazy here. They do say that e6 are the solid or Sicilians. So at least Hubner had the sensibility to play e6 Sicilian. But, okay, bishop e2. And now b5. Really, let's just, play the riskiest continuation. When we look at the games here, why am I not seeing too many recent games? Well, I guess people generally don't play bishop e2 these days. Bishop d3 has overtaken bishop e2 in terms of popularity. So maybe Hubner really understood something, with this b5. He understood some things, from what I understand. Probably we can learn a lot from Hubner. I think his analysis of the openings was probably ahead of his time. But he obviously understood b5 might be good here. Now white plays a3. So it turns out that castles is the main move. You don't even know. In 1973, what did the Encyclopedia of Chess Openings say about this position? Could the move 11 style move be interesting, maybe? We're swinging over to g3, kids. Looks interesting. I guess here we could have issues with b4. But this is always a nice option to have in their queen g3. Never been played. Queen f3. Illegal. The computer's looking at bishop f3. So that's a move. This was played much later. Tal, check this out. Tal Georgiou, 1982. So Tal would later rethink his strategy and play 9 years later, and Georgiou is still Romanian, great. Bishop f3, a little more active. a3, kind of a quiet move. And now bishop b7. And now what? f4. Okay. This makes sense. It's consistent. He stops b4. He wants to play bishop f3 without getting in the way of the f pawn. Astrabate's going with James Caan. Very relevant. And so we could play knight f6 here, but Tal's going to play bishop f3 anyway. That's the point. You could play b4. Hubie. Does anyone call him Hubner? Call him Hubie? He was a papyrologist. He understood Egyptian papyrus, how to decipher ancient hieroglyphics and shit like that, in addition to being a grandmaster. But like a real scientist. I just don't know what black should do, you know? I never played this line. So it's obvious like this is running into the wall of bishop f3. This is playable, though. So I don't know what's better. Black has a good score with that move. He plays knight c6. And Tal's like, okay, whatever. I'll play bishop e3. And it's getting to Nefedov territory now. Very Nefedov-like from the white side. You've got f4, bishop e3, bishop e2, a3, like 4 of Nefedov's favorite moves. And if black plays along, it could transpose to a form of Scheveningen here. So Hubner trades on d4. And you know, this move seems a little counterintuitive. But see, that's the thing about the Sicilian with a knight on d4. It's annoying, you know, it's just sitting there dominating the board. You can't drive it away with a pawn. And so, you know, you never know when you're black whether you should exchange or not. Maybe, let me ask a question. Why does Hubner exchange on d4 here? Just to trade pieces? Well, I mean, you know, he is developing the queen. It is a developed piece on the first try. I don't think it's easy to say, oh no, he can't take with the bishop, Nefedov. Because f4 is hanging. Very simple. There's a good reason for that. f4 is hanging. It's hard. You gotta wake up pretty early in the morning to figure out the flaw in Nefedov's logic. Yeah, he unfortunately has to keep the f4 guy defended. So after knight takes d4, so he forces him to take with the queen. And now we all expected rook c8. I would expect rook c8 probably. But still, you can't play bishop c5 because you'll drop g7. So we're expecting knight f6 or rook c8. And if knight f6, this has been played. And the question is, could white play e5? For one thing. Black's activating his b7 bishop. Tomas! This is the biggest problem in the Sicilian defense, you know, and not just the Sicilian. Many openings. Yeah, the knight, it's getting in the way of the bishop on b7. It's also getting in the way of our play along the c-file. You can also go to a5 and leave the uber knight on d4 to kill you. It's not a question of whether it's good to exchange on d4. The question is more like, when is the best moment to exchange on d4? I would rather white like lost tempo, but I guess that's Hubner's thinking. If he were to do just hypothetically, he probably gets blown away with knight takes b5 here. But just saying, like, theoretically, if you were to do this and white were to go queen d2, now you take on d4, and Nefedov could take with the bishop because the f4 pawn is protected. So you have to consider that possibility. He only has one option. Queen takes. Now, knight e7. And so this was later repeated by only a few players. Dr. Tits in 1993. No, I don't think he's Dr. Tits. Dr. Teeth. No, this is Dr. Dr. Nunn, Dr. Hubner. Maybe Tits is a doctor too. It's a great name, in any case. Doctor or no doctor. Wouldn't that be great if you were like a cosmetic surgeon? If I'm Dr. Tits, I'm going to become a cosmetic surgeon. Specialize in breast enlargement. They say that some people gravitate toward jobs that fit their name. It's like people that get dogs that look like them. They gravitate toward owning dogs that look similar to the people, to their owners. So if your name is Tits, you'd be more likely to be a cosmetic surgeon. Who's the doctor? Knight e7 heading for c6. Very nice. Just so he can get in the way of his bishop again, right? We'll see. So Tal plays an interesting move here, rook d1. You know, I just want to comment on the fact that it's not impossible to castle queenside in this position. But I think that it's going to be a quick b4, and that's going to be scary. So, the Red Baron played knight c6 and lost to Neil MacDonald in '88. His buzzer didn't work, apparently. But Hubner, with a different move, rook d8. Now this is probably analyzed in depth in the book. Sorry, rook d8. Not an obvious move. The rook is inactive here, but guarding. And now Tal castles. Everything's fine here. And now does Tal want to trade queens? He could. You know, Tal could play endgames extremely well. He was really well balanced. People always think, oh, well, Tal is just an attacking player, but he could play endgames as well as anybody. I would think, you know, this is a consideration, but at the same time, there could be some sacrifices on b5. Obviously, trading queens might, decrease our winning chances, but Hubner could also consider avoiding trading queens. But I would think he probably would trade queens and play rook to c8, and white is just a tiny bit better, in my opinion. Yeah, this is best. So, computer gives white a tiny edge after queen b6. Leads to nothing here. Nothing unless you're maybe like Magnus Carlsen or Karpov or something. This could lead to worse. Maybe nothing's better than what happened, Mr. Slow. Where did it lead? Where did this lead? White lost. Sometimes nothing might be better than something. Queen b6. I know some grandmasters who would definitely play that. Bishop e7, and now queen e1. Well, we're going like full Geller now. Yeah, no, it looks scary for black. I mean, white's very active. He's transferred his queen, popped it back to e1. It has, out to g3. White looks active. And here's a funny moment where, and by the way, guys, don't submit any more games because we're already full. What's up, these tricks? I've only gotten to the third game today. We're very slow today. And Mr. Slow has 2 games. So queen e1. Yeah, I mean, if I was black, I wish I had better than than just like a delayed Skaveningen with d6. One page of analysis on the move knight d5. Well, I think that, well, normally we would expect black to castle here. And if Hübner didn't castle, it must mean that he's afraid of something serious there. But I have the feeling like the computer is going to say castles is the best move. That's easily white's or black's most natural move. It connects the pieces. I don't see anything that scary. But maybe it's queen f2. He's got that Geller move. The queen f2 threatening bishop b6 is kind of annoying, isn't it? Now black would have to move the rook again. I still don't know how bad this is. Even if he has queen f2, we have to move our rook again, okay. Is it such a big deal? Well, 30,000 pages of analysis probably shows why it is or it isn't. But okay, he plays d6. This is probably not a bad move. Obviously, Hübner analyzed knight d5 in depth. But, according to Hübner, castling was bad for black. It's hard for me to believe that this is better. But now Tao gets real committal. This reminds me of someone else game we saw today. We got Blagojevich with f5. One of the most important things in the world is flexibility. And when we play f5, we lose a lot of flexibility. But, you know, there are some famous games where this move just blew black away. The most famous of which, I think, is in the iconic book, The Most Destructive Games Ever Played, or The Most Destructive Games of Chess, whatever. Lasker famously won a game where he played a quick f5 against someone. I don't remember who it was. Emanuel Lasker, obviously. Black isn't castled yet. f5 can be very dangerous, so Hübner has to... He can't hang out any longer. But it is inflexible. So now the dark squares go. You know? So now he's like, okay, bye-bye. Now I'm going to castle. But f6 is going to get scary. And so this is concrete. So this is where Hübner's going to, you know, use his concrete analytical skills to refute Tao's crazy-ass sacrifices. Tao obviously doesn't have to play f6 here. Anybody can see that. I'm sure that white has a lot of possibilities, but not as many as he used to, because the pawns are committed now. f6 is scary. How else can you improve your position? You don't really want to play king h1, you know, because of that diagonal. So our only other options are really like queen g3, maybe queen f2, bishop somewhere. I mean, this kind of move can be played, but it's contingent on that bishop, you know, getting hit, and this is also guarding c4. So I don't think we want to do this and leave our c4 wide open. And then, like, you know, so what other options are there really? You know, bishop h5. If you plonk your bishop out on h5, like Velimirovich, another one of Mr. Slow's favorites. Well, black isn't going to play g6, I assume. But this is weak. And you know, so I don't know. Bishop h5 might be a move that's worthy of taking a look at. Lasker Pirc, 1935. Thanks. So Nefedov Pirc. It was against Pirc, the Slovenian player. Moscow. Nefedov knows his classics. I couldn't remember it was Pirc. One of Pirc's most famous losses. And he wasn't playing the Pirc, strangely. Anyway, so I like bishop h5. The engine is not into bishop h5. It does, however, think that bishop g4 is an option. How bad is bishop h5? Apparently it's not great. It doesn't really do anything. I thought it might strengthen white's attack somehow, but it doesn't do a lot. So Tal plays f6, and now we get incredible complications. But if you take with the pawn, I mean, this has to be analyzed. But black would have to sack the exchange, right? After bishop h6, we have to give up the exchange with king h8. But I think that black has compensation here. But what about this? It's not enough compensation. Bishop takes f8. Maybe this is not enough. It looks close. And we might want to throw in a check with queen b6, king over, rook takes. I mean, I played a lot of browsers, and this might be okay for black, I would think. So I would like to get the book and really see what Hübner says about, for example, g takes. Rook f3. Oh no. Storming barricades. It's Larry Christensen. Oh no. Can we get there in time? Rook f3, king h8. Oh no. Rook here. Uncle Larry. This looks bad. This looks like something that happened to me once. No mentioning that. Check. Oh no. Uncle Larry. Uncle Larry probably did this to me at least once. But, alright. So, g takes is dangerous. Bishop takes, rook takes, g takes. And now there's no rook to lift to f3. So, queen h4. And now, queen e7. So the f6 pawn must be protected. And king g7 doesn't look good. And now Tal comes up with a sneaky move. So the sneaky move, rook d3. And yeah, we're looking at stuff like knight e5 and blocking with the knight here. And I would imagine that's the thing that Tal probably expected. How bad is knight e5? He's begging for knight e5 with rook d3. It's like, please play knight e5, Mr. Hübner. What's going on? Oof. Wow. That's sick. That's sick. So this is the point. That's a really nasty trap. The point is that you defeat knight g6 with this bishop takes f6, and I use the computer to cut through and see it quickly, but it basically refutes knight e5 altogether, and it's like a big giant trap. So Hübner sees it. He doesn't fall for knight e5. He plays f5, which might be one of the only moves. Offering a trade of queens, obviously, is out of the question for white. So bishop g5, and then another f-pawn. And now bishop h6, and white is threatening rook g3 check, which looks winning if left. But now knight e5 can be played. So I don't think this is easy. The good thing is the queen protects laterally, and we have several different options. But maybe this is actually a major threat to take on f5 positionally. But I mean, black has to consider giving back material here in this position. You're black, you're up a pawn in the exchange against Tal. You feel free to give back some material. That's the idea usually. So we can play candidate moves king h8, the awkward looking rook f7, which is kind of materialistic, walks right into bishop h5. I'm not a big fan of rook f7. And honestly, if I'm going to give up the exchange, I'd rather give him the rook on f8 for the dark square bishop. White's good bishop is the dark square bishop. But this knight e5 blocker defense here with knight g6 still remains an idea. But Hubner takes it even deeper. So what it looks like is Hubner is going to sack his queen. I've never seen this game, to my knowledge. But by playing f takes e, he's now doing something I didn't really seriously consider, which is sacrificing his queen. He's already got the exchange and a pawn. Now this is 2 pawns and the exchange. And after rook g3, he just plays king h8. And now is he going to get a rook and a bishop for the queen? So it's a rook, bishop, 2 pawns in the exchange. If e4 falls, it's just 1 pawn. A rook, bishop, the exchange. I mean, this is a lot of material for a queen. So, you know, maybe Tal underestimated this defensive resource was even possible. Check, check, takes. But it's a lot of material. You got two rooks for the queen. And it doesn't look like white has anything. It's basically just 2 rooks for the queen now. And a pawn. 2 rooks and a pawn for the queen. Because e4 is going. But it's fine. And white's attack is basically kind of done. You know? And these rooks are solid. So white is worse now. Probably almost losing. Although it's not easy. There's some traps, like white starting knight takes d6. In this position, if the d6 pawn were to fall, I would imagine that things would be rather unclear. But I don't think that white is better, for sure. Knight e5, defending the threat of knight takes g6, d6. And now the knight is super strong, can't be removed. Knight g3 with a new angle here. And now knight g6. So, are we losing our f6 pawn? And if so, is that a problem? Tal doesn't play knight h5 check now. Which is surprising. But it doesn't matter. Okay, the queen's attacked. Queen's attacked. So knight h5 check doesn't really do anything. You just go king h8, and the queen is under attack, so he can't take on f6. So here, queen d4. Queen is centralized, and Tal finds a new angle over here. King h8. Getting out of possible checks. Knight h5. So I wonder, you know, if this was a computer playing white, would the computer have, for example, you know, been able to put up resistance here against Hubner? Whereas Tal ends up losing in short order. I mean, there is obviously an issue here with g2, the g file, knights coming in, maybe in some lines, but I'm not sure this is that simple. The computer even thinks that white is a tiny bit better. Wow. That I did not think. The engine actually thinks that white is slightly better here. Dude is down 2 rooks and a pawn for a queen. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. But there are holes in the position. So if this was an engine, I guess Hubner would have to fight for a draw. But not easy for a human player for either side. Knight h5, knight e5, and then queen h4. Kind of looks like he wants a draw now. Like he's hoping black will go back, almost, and will repeat moves. And Hubner does not do that. Maybe there's something else though. If you play knight g6, it's possible there's another move. Queen f2, Queen h3. No guarantee, obviously, Tal is going to take a draw. So black plays very aggressively, though. Rook d7, offering the f6 pawn. And we've got rook g7 or possibly rook f7. Takes. If rook f7, there's no mate. There is a threat of rook f2. But this move instead. So what happens after g3? I mean, I guess I expected g3. Yes, it's weakening. And yes, there are scary moves like this. I'm not sure, though. Okay, white would rather not play g3, but how do you defend? Then your only other move is interposing. So Tal must figure he's busted here. He's slightly worse. Wow. He's lost. Okay, now he's lost, so he's just lost. g3 loses, everything loses. Wow. Just like that. You know, probably knight takes f6 is losing. He cannot take this pawn. Forced loss. So white's still okay until he takes the pawn on f6. Yeah, I mean, he might have anticipated rook f7, but still, it doesn't look like white's necessarily lost. I thought that g3 might be playable. There's inner positions. You can play knight g4. This is not simple to see how exactly black wins here. Obviously, we can't play like h5 or anything. There's a back rank check. But there might be some kind of take-take. It's not easy to see this is a forced loss. What's the point? Bishop takes g2. Jesus. So it's mostly regarding this bishop takes g2. So we can do a king and pawn endgame. Oh, that's really ugly. So basically, like bishop g2 here, 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 and then here, and white resigns. Down a pawn and a king and pawn endgame. Oof. And so at the end of the day, you kind of have to do g3, but that's probably like the f3. Damn. It's rough. There's rook f7 and some rook f1 checks that would force black to win the queen with like knight f3, bishop f1, knight f3 check. It's over. Wow. Yeah, very impressive. So, Tal, overconfident, grabbing that pawn, gives up the guy there, and now he's lost. Bishop h5, over. And over and out. Too much material. So rook g6 is coming. Alright, we gotta fix this. I'm gonna try to get through as many of these games as I can, but that's the last of our feature games. After Hübner, we have to speed it up a little. Alright, very nice game. Thanks for sending it in. Now we can see the other half, how the other half lives. Schumacher. This is an old one, but a good one. And I don't know if this is like a repeat? It might be a repeat. This is an old game from September. But Schumacher hasn't been around lately. Gifted subs from Mr. Slow. 5 gifted subs. Happy New Year. Miro Hand, Imbile, 4CP, NM Kimmy, and Mr. Chess. We recognize. We recognize you. Thank you, Dr. Hübner. In honor of Dr. Hübner, 5 gift subs. Taking out Mr. Tal. Tal Paul. And Dr. Hübner. Alright, so let's get to work. Thanks, Mr. Slow. So it's a Caro-Kann where Schumacher was black against the great and dangerous Mr. Slow. Bishop f5, knight f3, and now we've got bishop e2, the short variation. This line is sort of out of fashion these days. people playing a lot of h4 and whatever. But it's got to be fine for white. I never know what the best is for black here. 97, c5. What I don't like is those people that they're doing like h6 and g5. Nefedov, favorite plan. I don't know. I just can't get with playing the Caro-Kann and playing an early h6 and g5. There's something just like wrong about that, you know? Right, Nefedov? I suggest Nefedov take up the Caro-Kann because he loves the London system and playing the Slav. So if you love the Slav, you should play the Caro-Kann. Alright, but kudos to you for playing the Schliemann. Anyway, little joke. Yeah, h4. So, pretty early c5 here. And that's an interesting factoid there. Michael Adams played the Caro-Kann himself. Wow. That I did not know about. And this might be an isolated game in 92. Adams not really known for playing the black side of the Caro-Kann. And to play it against none, I mean, Adams is really good with the white side of the advanced Caro-Kann. Wonder why. Maybe losing on the black side helped him perfect his white side. But now, Mr. Slow did not act dynamically. In most cases, you never want to do this kind of passive c3, but it looks like it's scored all right. So c4 is basically, Mr. Slow would turn it into a kind of perverse Albin after c4. That's a game-changing move in these advance. Mr. Slow would normally find this, I would think. c5 is too early by Schumacher. You should just play 97. Mikey's such a good, classical e4, e5 player, and in that time, back in the 90s, of course, not so much anymore, but he used to play the Marshall. He's a very good Marshall player. So after c5, white should punish black and take over with c4, but he doesn't, and he plays quietly. Now, okay, white's a little better, probably. But it's not really scary. So with black, I don't know. I never know when to exchange pawns. But having played c3 now, white can't really play c4. And if he does, he's a full tempo down. So black should play 97 or maybe a6 or something to stop bishop b5, although it looks slow. But this move is insane, This move is like, South Park style. Masturbate. This is not okay. Alright. This is not okay, boys and girls. Don't play h5 unprovoked on the black side of the advanced Caro-Kann. This is out of control teenager on the Jerry Springer show. As I reference a very funny South Park episode with Cartman getting breast implants and going on Jerry Springer as a transsexual. But yeah, he's a pregnant transsexual teenager or something. I don't remember. But anyway, this is totally inappropriate. This is just inappropriate. You can't do that. h5. And Mr. Slow, while we have to consider, the lobster type of advance here, you could you could possibly play h4, but I mean, I doubt that h4 is bad, but it sort of feels like you're playing into black's hands there. I don't think you should. The two wrongs don't make a right kind of thing. I think we should ignore h5. He tries to react like actively here with bishop g5, and it might not be that bad, but maybe maybe the way to punish this is, the flank attack should be punished in the center. So without, first of all, c3 was wrong. You fucked up and you didn't play c4, and now black plays an irrelevant move. So it's time to say, hey, guess what? Now my screw up is even more powerful than last move, probably. Because black's position is even more scattered and random than it was in the first place. I think c4 is even better than it was the first time. If you keep pushing your lobster claw, I would just be like, whatever. Or you could even play h3 if you really wanted to. h5 for fair is g5. Yeah, but g5 isn't protected. You can't even play g5 without just losing it. Black's getting blown away in the center here. But Mr. Slow didn't play c4 the first time. So I would say he also could try bishop e3, but that's the kind of thing. If black does absolutely nothing, if white does absolutely nothing, let's say bishop e7, and just reacts totally routine, then maybe your concept has some merit. If white just literally just totally ignores what you're doing, yeah, then maybe this kind of shoving the pawns would have some effect. But not this is not really the proper situation. And also, as I talked about earlier, there are lines where h6 and g5 is played. But h5 and g5 is going to be harder to do. But anyway, Mr. Slow could blow him away with c4. He doesn't. He plays bishop g5. It may not be that bad. Bishop g5. I would not expect black to play it, but you can play f6. This is not something that Schumacher might do. But Karpov or someone who plays the advance, I think you have to be willing to play f6 to put the king on f7 in a lot of lines, and it's very dangerous. But I think I like that the best. This is a mission that's also, I'm not really in love with it. Okay, maybe bishop e7 is okay, and then bishop e7 is okay. Takes. And then I expect knight takes. Developing. But black took with the queen. And now the knight is still on g8. So I'm having PTSD flashbacks to watching Adams beat Manassian 2 years ago at the World Senior. It was worse. It was worse. It was knight on h6, g6 or something, and but it's not that bad. Rook e1. There it is. It's getting closer. Yeah, the queen is pretty much never on e7. It's not so bad in this case though. But yeah, black's position is discoordinated. And so Mr. Slow finally decides it's time for c4. And I don't know if better late than never applies here, but I suppose it's probably not a bad move. D takes c4. And now, normally when you're playing the white side of these advanced variations, and also in the French, there is the possibility of just splattering black with d5. Because this is, and just the square, d5. So Mr. Slow has considered d5. If d5 takes, we probably don't have time for going completely nuts, but who knows? Maybe even knight c3 is strong. Because, here I'm wondering, what the hell is going on? This is probably too much. But you never know. I would say just recapture. with the idea of knight coming to c3. Black will castle queenside, and all hell will break loose. But ultimately, I don't think that black's king is super safe, and so white should be fine. That's another possibility. White instead just developed with knight c3, kind of threatening d5, but black has time to capture. And now you've got the possibility of really insane knight b5 with the double threats of coming in here and here. But again, this might be going too far. You have to calculate. Apparently queen takes d4 was best, according to the engine. Well, that's a very sensible move. So Mr. So took with a knight, which is... This is not really a problem. Knight takes f5. So queen takes d4 would have been developing more. He does open up bishop f3. You know, I don't think like bishop takes h5 and knight takes f5 are devastating threats. It's the other things like just totally outstripping black in development. You know, getting into b5, d6, crunch, just leaving black's king, you know, in the middle of the board while all of our pieces develop. But trading stuff like this or winning a pawn on h5, really not the main threat. But Schumacher here, I don't think I would even consider taking this pawn. This is really, really insane. Knight takes e5. I just want to get out, man. Get me out of here. I would probably castle if I was black in this position. Seriously. I'm just happy to be alive, you know. Schumacher takes on e5. Is this sound? Wow, it's the best move. I don't think I'd have the cojones to play that, man. There's like all these like delivery guys riding their bikes on a sidewalk in the city now because they don't have the balls to ride in the street. And when I used to cycle, I used to always ride my bike in the street, but it was Boston, not like Budapest. And if you like kill a cyclist, you know, you probably like get sued and shit. Here, okay, it's a little more dangerous, but still, this is like riding your bike on the sidewalk, and this is like riding your bike, you know, on the street. With knight takes e5. I mean, you're not afraid to ride your bike on the street. But these tricks, you're dealing in generalities. The bottom line is the white is down. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. White is down a pawn here. Just one pawn. So if we castle and he recaptures on h5, you have a point that white has more space because of the e5 pawn. But black also has this, I think, quite nice pawn on c4, and the possibility of us implanting a knight or a piece on d3. So I'm not sure. You know, the computer thought that white is a little better, but I still think this is like extremely dangerous. There could be a tactic that blows black away. Now, Mr. Stowe went for kind of a surprising move, but I guess I see why. He didn't play bishop takes h5 though, I wonder. And there's this move, knight d3, that's been bugging me. What the hell is going on? There's no tactics here, like rook takes, bishop takes e6, knight takes, bishop takes e6, knight d5, anyone? Maybe we're almost getting to Hubner. Oh my god, does that work, bro? Tell me this works. Knight d5 with the idea of rook takes e6. This might work. Seriously. So, just an analysis, right? Knight takes e5. You played bishop takes e4. Fine, it's a move. But bishop takes h5, And we're threatening the knight on e5. And the most natural move in the world would have been knight d3. And the question is, do you have knight d5? Either right away or in tandem with this sort of sacrifice. Check this out. So, how did I do this? Knight takes e6. Bishop takes e6. Knight c5, knight d5. And if you do queen c5, yes. Rook takes e6, check. And now black can play king f8, probably. f2 is a threat. The knight is hanging. The rook might be hanging. Yeah, and it looks like black's fine. Material is equal momentarily. But it's very easy for white to drop a piece here. Queen h4 instead of c5. Ah. Queen h4. Can't we just play g3? Well, I mean, there's multiple issues. Rook takes e6, check, and then what? No, you're gonna go to d4. Yeah, I mean it's possible, but it would transpose almost. Yeah. Anyway, it all looks fine. It all looks fine. So Mr. Slow is so close to something here. Knight takes e5, and it turns out bishop takes h5, knight d3, and there's just nothing. So my line was what? Knight e6? Yeah, exactly. Knight e6, bishop e6, knight d5. The engine likes queen d7. Oh my god. You just don't recapture. How sick is that? You just don't recapture. You just play king f8. This rook works out really well here. Anyway, that was fun. Okay, that was fun. Bishop takes c4 was the best move. But ultimately, black's fine. And you're just trading. Check here. And now takes. And then white has nothing. White is down a pawn. White is down a pawn and now fighting for a draw. Though the h5 is so weak that white should probably have reasonable chances to draw. And maybe you should take that bishop immediately. Maybe not. We'll see. Okay, here. That's a nice combative move. Do we have knight f5? Knight f5, queen d1. Knight f5, queen d1. Knight f5. That was the game. So Mr. Slow blundered a shot, queen d1. Check. If h6, check. Just take it. We're winning the exchange. So, honestly, like, Schumacher got kind of lucky here. Objectively, I think that, although rook c8 was a nice move, white should have pretty good chances to hold here. Despite the fact that he's down a pawn. Black's kingside is pretty weird. So I'm not sure that black's going to be able to hang on to the extra pawn. So draw is a likely result in this game. Mr. Slow fell for knight takes f5 and then blundered this tactic and lost the exchange. Though he tried something else. This is interesting. You play knight e7 check instead, king over, queen e4, and then knight takes c8. So you got to an endgame anyway. A little bit better one, more simplified for black. Now rook d8 looks like a reasonable move, but it allows, oh no, another tactic, rook d1. If queen e2 we lose. So Mr. Slow gets a lucky break there, gets his pawn back, and now this is from one of our, what was this, from one of our tournaments? Queen d2. Oh my god. Yeah, but Schumacher is brutal playing for time. I almost kind of remember this. The Time Master. So now, this should be a draw. And Black might be... I don't know, I mean, it's a draw. This is a draw. Practically impossible to win, other than on time. White even has an outside kind of pawn. F4 is fine. Check, King E4. This is a terrible move by Mr. Slow. Really bad move by Mr. Slow in time pressure now. That I think he would never play under normal conditions. He decentralizes. Yeah, I didn't know if it was increment. I assumed there was an increment, but it's not. I didn't know there was no increment. You would have found King E4 under normal circumstances. This is a draw, but this is a much stronger move. King is extremely strong. If anything, White is better now after King E4. This is an inaccuracy. Yeah. Well, I guess you were playing for a win. It's a draw. Actually, Schumacher was sensible to play it that way. And this is a draw. White is a tiny bit better. Again, King centralization, King E5. Now it's really a draw. Oh no. We're going to get flagged? Knight D6 check? He really panicked. Poor Mr. Slow was down to like 2 seconds. But obviously King takes B6. But you're not going to make it, he's going to flag you. So congratulations on the flag, Schumacher. Impressive. Impressive flagging. Schumacher has 11 minutes against 0 now. Flagging in a drawn position. But Mr. Slow loses on time, presumably. Not so clear now. You know, he didn't take that pawn. Might not be so easy. I think Black's actually winning now. He had to play King takes B6. Or something sensible. Alright, anyway, let's go faster. It's 9 o'clock. I'm getting hungry. But congratulations on your flagging skills. Excellent work there. Alright, Snetsteg. I don't know if Snetsteg is here. But Mr. Slow is not one to play without the increment. You know, he's a very good increment player. Where's Snetsteg? Snetsteg's opponent is playing Black. It's a Sicilian. Snetsteg plays a Grand Prix attack with Knight C3. You know, there's been some talk lately of like this being some revolutionary idea. I mean, I'm not really... I understand like it's playable, but whatever would be my judgment on that. Okay, Knight C3, Knight C6, F4, E6. I think this is actually maybe one of the best ways to play. Honestly, against the Grand Prix, E6 might even be better than G6. Knight F3, D5, equalizing. And then, I guess you're supposed to play Bishop E5. Again, you can do D3 and play with tension. Because the endgame is probably a little better for White. It's not even clear which way White should take here. Yeah. So D3, no, Bishop E5, main line. And now the Richard Palliser analyzed this in his excellent book on anti-Sicilians like almost 20 years ago now. Because he's the first author I've seen who recommended E6. But Black has more than one option here, you know? I don't know. I mean, could you take on E4? Is this even possible? I guess this is unnecessarily risky for Black. I don't know if I like D4. So, okay. Knight F6 is definitely playable. but I think this is best. Knight e7. The main line. Knight e7 is what black's supposed to do. Any case, he did try this, which is interesting, and you can smash the pawns immediately. So we're following Larsen Rosito. That's a very late game, though. Very, very late game for Larsen. I saw him in '99, and he was already extremely old, and starting to be sick. He is diabetic. So for 2002 was really late for Larsen, but he still beats a strong player. Bishop takes c6 check, b takes c, knight takes e4. You know, I guess this is maybe too much. Knight takes e4, and now black plays knight f6. This is really a bad structure, very bad for black. But maybe if black is dynamic, he can make it work. You can see here there's a couple games with bishop a6. My friend Alexander Manea has a game. Oh, I played that guy, Joaquin Mohammed, too. I think he actually did some streams. Played both of those guys. So this is interesting. If the pawns get fixed, though, black's in big trouble. So this move is interesting too. Knight f6, and now Snetsig doesn't take. Someone took here. Shanava. Because what do? You know, you recapture with the queen. Would it be worth considering taking with the pawn for black? Maybe the bishop is so bad, though. The other bishop is so bad. Black's lost all 3 games here. Oh, this is Abasov, the Abasov guy. Lost in 2008. He's now 2650. That's interesting. So he was very young back then? I think he'd be about 27 now. 27 minus 17. Is that possible? 20. He'd be like 11 or something. He must have been like a child prodigy. I think the guy's like 27 now. So if he was 2375 in 2008, he must have been like 11. Jesus. Alright. Queen e2. Knight takes e4. So we're following some old games. Queen takes e4, queen d5. Black's just going to get tortured in this endgame. d3. If c4 doesn't work. If white can fix the structure with b3, you also might have a5. Wow. They're actual game. There are actually 2 games here. Matthias Bach in 1994. This looks like Deep Blue versus Christopher Lutz Deep Blue or whatever. So bishop a6. Maybe we can't stop c4. Boguslavsky. I don't know who that is. This is probably correspondence. The only Boguslavsky I know is an old IM, who's like 2050 now. White plays b3. I can't believe these guys would play this crap in correspondence. Bundesliga, no. It's real. A real game. There's another Boguslavsky. Wow. Who would have thunk it? Boguslavsky 2. But anyway, your opponent played this exact position. b3. What is the chances? Following these 2 old games, both German, and now black played bishop d6. And a new move. But isn't the game over after c4? Someone played c4, and the other player played queen takes c4 check. No doubtedly, is that a word? Undoubtedly with the idea of playing c4. If black doesn't play c4, he's done in this position. The only other move that black could possibly consider here, and it's a horrible move, looks like maybe f5. I mean, if you want to play f5, then probably white would trade anyway, and then like fix your pawns. Nah, then the bishop goes back there. No, we'd have to move the queen, but you're still not getting in c4, and your bishop is dead. This is Gingy Gingievich. This is dead. So black played like these two games, but didn't realize he can't allow white to play c4. So after this, he's like positionally lost. It's Christopher Lutz versus Deep Blue. c4, takes. Now the only hope for black is, I mean, this is done, and this is done. So could you possibly get your bishop out like this diagonal? Well, if white plays e5, that's hard to do. And that's Gingievich. Black has gingivitis. The other possibility is playing a5, a4 for black, which not deep blue, or whatever it was, one of those computers. f6 is a nice try. White can gang up on that c5 pawn. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. It takes a long time. Here. I'm also not sure if this is necessarily our best plan, but it's a good plan. Castles, I don't know about. There's a lot of options for where to put the white king here, and I'm not sure. You might be better off in the center. This looks kind of slow. And now this move, ugly. Rook fd1. So we really need to get a plan here. I mean, you should be probably planning on the knight to a4 to blockade the a pawn and put pressure on c5. We have this. Okay. That makes sense. And now we're winning. And black is really screwed now. If you play e5, white could even play f5. And if g6, maybe even g4, but I guess there black has some small chances. This seems like the best chance. Black should try to sack a pawn or something. Otherwise, you're just going to die. Or you can sack the exchange like Botvinnik with rook d4. But I mean, he has to try something. Unfortunately, we can't take with the bishop. And a wonderful opposite color bishop and rook's endgame here, which should be winning. This is a disaster. But black couldn't play rook d8. Man, that's brutal. So he should have played rook a8. He had to play rook a8 with the idea of rook d1, king e8. And even then, it's going to be like a nightmare. a6, rook d1 here. Now he's cut off. And then you have this, and this. Crushing. Yeah, couldn't have done it better myself. Brutal. Oops. Alright. Pavel Nefedov versus Andrew Tate. What about Andrew Tate for Prime Minister? That's the new thing. We didn't get our fill of politics today. The Bra Party? Brov? It just came out like yesterday. I heard about this. Nefedov. We're in the know about all politics UK. We know you're secret supporter of the Brov party. Alright, Pavel Nefedov versus Michael Tate. Mickey Tate. So, e4, b6. Dubious. The computer just brutalizing b6. d4, bishop b7, knight c3. Nefedov against b6. I don't remember now, but I think he had a reasonable answer against it. Seems like something that Nefedov would be well prepared for. I just want to reiterate this line that I like. Nefedov could appreciate this. If you play knight e2, allow bishop b4, you can sacrifice your e-pawn, but how would you do it if you did? Is there a good move for white? Is there a good way to sacrifice the pawn? I'm trying to think. Let me see what I did before. I don't have any games. Come on. Really? I did a3, knight f3, bishop d3. Well, I guess you could use a different order of moves. Something like h4, bishop b4, knight e2, sack the pawn. Then you play a3, and after take, you have excellent compensation for the sacrificed pawn. See what I'm saying? Is anybody out there? Asterbate, you know about this kind of pawn sacrifice? Playing the Owen defense? Let's see what the engine says. Oh, white's much better. Wow. Thanks for a cool idea, Sladgy. h4. Well, I'm going to guess that bishop b4 is not black's best move in this position. But most people, I guarantee you, most people are going to do it. And so you get a reverse crusher gambit. See, why play a3 Nefedov when you could play h4? This is so strong, man. Here. Oops, I hung my central pawn. a3 takes, and black has like a very difficult game. This is exact reverse of a line they've discovered against the b3. And no, h4 is like an extra tempo because you're using this move, especially in lines where they go bishop g6. Now it's over. You just have h5. You completely take the bishop g6 out of the equation completely. So now black has no choice but to go back like the other way. Because, in the reverse version of it, bishop g6 is actually one of the best defenses. Or it's the best defense according to the computer. So now on bishop b7, you can continue your usual shit with like queen g4, for example. And this is extremely useful. If black should probably play king f8. I imagine this is the best defense. And white is better. Let's see. 0.6. Not bad for a pawn down position. The usual shit. Look at that. Masters games? Oh, there's no games. What a surprise. The queen also appears on g3. This is very useful. h4. Triple exclam. Oh, it was played. And the freaking guy lost. Against Ipatov. Now, I don't know. I heard Ipatov is kind of overrated. Bishop b4. And white is an idiot. Oh my god. The guy's 2404? Who is this guy? The whole point, bro, is to play knight e2. And he played bishop d3. Duh. I'm just going to randomly play h4 for no reason. So even Ipatov, yeah. After this, what are you going to do? He's got to take the pawn. He cannot take the pawn. Not take the pawn and play knight f6. Then I could do anything, even f3. But okay, probably. Okay, and knight f6 is interesting. We can play e5 there. Oh man, this is a dangerous line. Even a3 is okay. So honestly, Nefedov here, I think that black should go into a hippo, probably, against your a3. The only question would be like the move order. So, should he start with g6 or d6 or knight e7? Now that's not the only approach, obviously, but I would think like that's the best practical try to play a hippo where a3 isn't. It's not the greatest, most useful move in the world, you know. But it appears that knight f6 is played more commonly. I don't know if that's a good idea. Yeah, it seems to me that it's a noob move to play knight f6 here. And you're playing the Nefedov's trap, essentially. So I'm definitely doing the hippo, but I don't know my move order. Looks like g6 has the best score. But, okay, some people played bishop e7. I mean, that's just weird. Mario Horvath. Pessi plays weird openings. I'll do that when I'm playing the lobster with h5. No, I mean, this is a move. You can play knight e7. You can play d6. You can play a6. I'm sorry, g6, of course. If h4, then we play h6. Here's Antal Gergo losing to Baratoshi Daniel. So just to show you how dangerous the hippo can be, you know, 2550 GM, losing to a 2370 IM. Alright, anyway, so his opponent plays into, oof. Oh, that's bad. Ouch. Yeah, you can't do that here. This is a bad Benoni. And Nefedov, you know, I got to admit, like, Nefedov, knowing him, he's so comfortable playing the white side of the Sicilian. I'm surprised you weren't tempted to play knight f3 here. Look at the score. Lexi Ortega against Chom, 1985. Is Lexi Ortega Cuban? He must be Cuban, right? And he immigrated. What's with like Cubans immigrating to Italy? Like, I guess it's easy for them to learn Italian. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought he was Cuban, but he lives in Italy. Plays for Italy. He played in the Italian seniors. He played. We didn't play Italy. That was the one strong team we didn't play, but they played very well. He was like their bottom board. I didn't think he was Italian though. But check this out, Chom. No, Nefedov gotta go d5. This is exclamation point. If you don't play d5, we take away your master title. And now it's like a bad. I don't know what to call it. It's just bad. This is just bad for black. Really bad. It's horrible. It's like a. I don't know. It's like a really bad. If you play, you could play a6 now, and have a really bad like day. Your national master title. Ugh, this is horrible. So he takes, and now knight takes is wimpy. You gotta take with a pawn, and now black has to watch it because d6 could be dangerous. Nefedov's been known to play d6. Oh, and defense is just bad to begin with. Okay, yeah, he does what he has to do. He plays d6. And so now a3 doesn't help us too much here. It's just a bad Benoni, but we also have a kind of useless move. You know, so we may have to play like a6, a4. Just, it's a standard bad old Benoni. And so I'm wondering what we should do. Like the traditional approach would be knight f3, knight d2, or knight f3, knight d2, knight c4. I like to do. You played bishop e5 check, and that might not be a bad move. Can you play this, probe? Like, what do you call it? When aliens, like, abduct humans and they start doing experiments on bishop e5? I'm getting kind of silly now. The alien probe variation. But I think, Hansel and Gretel approach is quite good. This is fine. If a6, we just go a4. And it's a bad Benoni for black, as Acerbate can attest. But, the probe variation is interesting. So Nefedov goes down his own path when the bomb cloud is not recommended. So black is forced to play knight d7. But I think the only justification of this is the probe ideas with bishop c6. Otherwise, I have trouble buying your setup. There's one other thing Nefedov could do here. He could play queen e2 check. Queen e2 check, incorporating ideas of like bishop f4. So what does black do? If we say bishop e7, white has bishop f4, putting pressure on d6, and we've got ideas of like bishop d6. So this is very uncomfortable. Black probably has to play Nefedov's favorite queen e7. But I don't think that's necessarily that bad. White's still better. But I guess trading queen's probably not the best. You can still play a4, but it feels like we lost the tempo. So we're going to need to see your probe. Black plays bishop e7, white castles, black plays knight f6. This transposes back to that game. That's unbelievable. Nefedov's going to need to prove... This is an OTB game. You're going to need to prove, like, your whole probe plan has a point. Or else it's like a fail. If you play the immediate probe, black can play stuff like queen c8. And it looks like he's okay. But here, he just gets out. And now what are you going to do? So what's the point of the whole probe thing? So white played a4 in that game, which I would have done anyway, but I don't really get putting the bishop on b5 if you're going to just have to retreat it or something. We should have never put it on b5. This is kind of wasting time. a4, a6, and he doesn't do a probe. The probe is too late for the probe. Is it too late for the probe? Takes, knight b8. Probe 1 down. Prepare the next probe. That looks like we'd lose our probe. It's like a Mars rover or something. It's gone. That's alright. We got another one. The mission to recover it is too expensive. Just cancel the probe. Cancel the probe. It's alright. Bishop up. Knight takes c6. Bishop takes f6. Bishop takes f6. Knight d5. No. This is not enough. We can't be losing our probe. So that was kind of a fail by that guy. And Nefedov joining him. You need to make this work somehow. Maybe queen e2? Ah! The engine found knight h4. Yeah, that's not an easy move to play. But it's not unheard of in these old Benonis of going for f5. Of course, black can try g6. Then we have this preventing from castling. So, knight h4 was a sharp move. But I think you should refrain from playing bishop b5 if you don't have a concrete plan with this move. Nefedov, not really a d4 player, playing a Benoni d4 kind of structure. Try to stick to something natural. Alright, let's see what happened. Didn't find h4, that was a tough move. Played h3, stopping knight g4. But what are we going to do on a6? That's the question. Now we can't just trade. Does the probe work? If we probe, black has queen c8. No, we've already discussed this. He has takes, knight b8. Okay. So you have to move. So this is a standard square normally if black can't play b5. But since black can play b5, we're screwed. If your pawn's on a4, bishop c4 is a good move. Maybe. Even there he might have b5. But now we have to go back to f1. I assume. From f1, you could maybe play g3 and bishop g2 to reinforce d5. And you're getting out of the way of your rook anyway. So b5, and now black's coming with that. So Nefedov is in trouble. Like, potentially losing d5. g3, knight b6, bishop g2, and black captures the pawn. So what do you guys want to do? We you know, worst case scenario you can take, but this is also not great, giving up a bishop for nothing. So after bishop f1, b5, what are you going to do? Like bishop g5? Black might have tactics, but probably not. This is weak. But bishop g5 sucks for other reasons. Maybe it's not so bad. Well, if knight b6, alright, now the pawn is going on d5. And if we have to do this, well, we're not happy, but we're probably, yeah, we're not happy. We're screwed. This is bad too. So we got serious problems here. I don't know, Nefedov. Maybe you need to rethink this whole strategy. The probe works. Oh my god. It works. Here. Bishop c6, bishop takes c6, d6, c6. I gave up on the probe. What did I miss? Oh, you take on e7 and sack the exchange? You fucking kidding me? Oh my god. Oh my god, no. No! This can't work, right? This can't work, right? Tell me this works. This looks a little scary for black, because we're facing a serious threat. The probe works, but Nefedov has to see this. I didn't see it either. It looks like maybe you could play bishop g5. And on this, you could do a capture now. It's not nearly as good as the other line. This is way better. Take, knight b8, sack the exchange. The computer thinks it's equal. Queen e7, bishop g5, but I'll take it. Knight takes c6, knight d5, queen e6. Now it's unclear. We have compensation. That makes a lot of sense, though, you know, the probe. He was inconsistent and didn't follow his probe. Bishop d3, now the d5 pawn is going to fall. Maybe not immediately, but yeah, knight b6 is coming. So I don't know, you're going to have to do some kind of Houdini here to not lose that pawn. This is the whole point of things like the Benoni and the old Benoni. You create this weakness on d5 and black just loses it. Black just wins it, I mean. Here. This is horrible. Very disappointed, Nefedov. Very disappointed. You managed to win this game. You're very, very fortunate. This guy had you in deep trouble. There is no solution here for white. It's just a question of like the best way to lose your central pawn. So I don't know if this helps. So knight f takes d5. Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. Bishop e4. Here's this. I don't see how this is working. And maybe we can try some crazy stuff like take knight g5. But it's not really enough. Fishing expedition at best. Half a pawn. You're close. Alright, let's see how Nefedov swindles his way. Queen d2. And now knight f takes d5. Now he does it. And now you've got the bishop e4. So you got the queen off of d1. So you could set up this bishop e4 thing that I wanted to do in the other variation. That's cute. It also protects the bishop on g5. So Nefedov tricked him. And now black has to be careful. I saw how that. Yeah, 91, 93. An alternative. A good alternative. Takes rook a7. And now the probe is back. Probe is back online. Bishop c6. We've got a message from the probe. It's sending signals. Bishop c6. It's still sending signals from the surface. Knight d7. Are we just like losing a piece for black? That's losing a piece. So Nefedov's opponent. Wait, he's not losing a piece. Is he losing a piece? Losing a piece. Oh. There's a lot of players like this. He's 1501. Played the opening great and horribly at the same time. Played the middle game great and horribly at the same time. He played the whole game great and horribly at the same time. Well, like alternating, you know, between really good and really horrible moves. But mostly he was like just tactically tricked by Nefedov after outplaying Nefedov. But, you know, if you look back at the original start of the opening, it was also terrible. I mean, black plays c5 and gets an absolutely horrific position. And then, you know, within 10 moves, Nefedov is clearly worse. Now, I don't know that it's, like, intentional. I think black just got lucky there. Alright, Nefedov, nice swindle. Next game's from Uber Driver. This is our last 3 games, guys. I'm going to go a little faster because we're getting hungry. This is, yeah, Uber Driver is not with us. He's at the hospital. Checking on a friend. I didn't know that Uber Driver played c3 Sicilian. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, but good job, Sensei. That was funny that your game followed some exact games and your opponent just like died when the other 2 games that went on in that exact position, the opponents managed to salvage draws. He let his bishop just die. Basically, he played like a computer from like 1998. Alright, c3. Uber Driver, I don't know what you're doing here. Is this like a deferred Mora Gambit? I mean Smith, sorry. He refuted his deferred Smith-Mora Gambit. Ugh. Disgusting. Disgusting. E5. Horrible. Yeah, this is really horrible for white. So black goes for it with d4, but I don't recommend this move unless you... Yeah, I mean, I don't think that black needs to play d4 here. It's a different story. If it's like e6, this is a different story. e6, c3, d5, e5. Now, if you're black and you don't play the French defense, your bishop's kind of blocked in. And I think there's a much stronger case for going for d4 as a Sicilian player. Though even having said that, it's actually quite tricky. My teammate Mark Ginsburg won an easy game in the World Senior Teams in July in Poland, but he knew what he was doing. Like, Mark knew what he was doing. A lot of people, like, the first time I played this with black, they don't know what they're doing. But this is different. Like, black hasn't played e6 here. So, because the bishop isn't blocked in, you know, I don't really think that black needs to go to these extremes of playing d4. You really don't have to do that. So any sensible move here will do for black. As you can see, most people play knight to c6. Black's score with knight to c6 in over the board. This is a good line Uber Driver chose. Black has no losses in 23 games after knight c6. Oof. Now that's the kind of line I want to play when I'm white. 0 wins for white in 23 attempts. That's how bad this is. And Uber Driver thinks it's a good opening. Hey, I'm going to play this. This is great. You know. That's probably like the worst statistical result I've ever seen for that many games. That's seriously. Now, and then the question comes up, yeah, but it's not the opening, it's the players. Well, true. Like, only really bad players would play this line with white. Sorry, Uber Driver. You're not really, you know, the typical noob. But gotta get beyond playing this kind of trash. So anyway, e5. This is a bit much. So Florentino Garmendes played this position. This was probably an Olympiad game. Mexico versus Wales. Garmendes crushed me in 1989. I think it's my oldest game maybe it was 89, and he crushed me with a knight d5 sacrifice in a Sicilian. But he was playing for Mexico. That's Mexico-Wales, Olympiad 2002. But he's a strong player, but I don't know why he would possibly play this, because the dude just devastated me with a knight d5 sack in an open Sicilian. Why anybody who do that would play such crap with white, I have no idea. Bishop c4 there. So Uber Driver plays b4. This is just garbage. Now we're transposing to a bad. I don't know. Uber Driver tries to piss me off or something by submitting this trash. I think he's just trying to troll me, basically. I'm not gonna go into too much depth here. This is terrible for white. So black plays d takes c, but I mean this is central pawn here. I'm not sure. You know, I want to trade it off. Or I didn't know about d4 in the first place, but I don't know about this. It's probably playable. Okay, takes, and now bishop f5. Bishop f5 a bit weird. But I take no responsibility for what happens now to black. You're going to just let white take back here with a knight on c3? Do you think that's a good idea? Don't know. Now, ultimately, what is black playing? Like some kind of weird Alekhine defense? So, okay, at least he keeps control of d4 for the moment. White's played a really crap opening, black's played horribly. And now, knight f3. Yeah, it's a very strange Alekhine defense. I was wondering about this. But, okay, knight f3, and now black wastes another tempo with bishop g4. Because his position wasn't bad enough already. And now the fantastic d4. Bishop takes f3. And g takes f3. Now I'm wondering, is there some sort of queen sacrifice or something? Knight takes d4, queen d4, queen d4, bishop e5 check, king d8, something like that. But black takes with the queen. We played this. White has a just very strong center. But I wonder if our knight's hanging, our e5 pawn's hanging. We don't really have a choice. We have to keep those protected. Probably we can't afford to lose either the e5 pawn or the c3 knight. c3 knight, obviously. Now there's a fork here at c2, which may actually not be that dangerous. So I'm not sure. Rook b1, castle's queen side probably. I guess we have various options here with white. This is a safe move, certainly. Check. Black takes. He didn't want to roll the dice with king d8. Okay, takes, threatening knight c7. What's going on here? We're up no material, but we have one threat at c7. We have e5 with some space advantage. And black is in trouble, but could black survive, maybe? Like castle's queen side. He knows that's legal, right? Does he know it's legal to castle queen side? If castle's queen side, now you have nothing better than knight takes a7 check, king b8, and probably go back to b5. And I guess black is in deep trouble in any case. But at least he could survive. This looks kind of crazy. King d8. Fancy move syndrome with e6. And then f6. That's ugly. Bishop f4. a6. Check. And we're getting close to mating that now. Beautiful. Bishop c7. Nice. So bishop c7, and now if pawn takes, bishop b6. That was the secret move that white needed to see before he could go into this, but black finds this hidden resource. And then we close it out with this move. Very beautiful. Because after pawn takes, then we closed out this square and we got a mate on d8. So very nice mate. Horrible opening, nice mate. Alright, Saeed's sent in the game. He's playing the Nimzo Larsen, b3, and now e3, and now black transposes to a queen pawn game. So I hope that black is a queen pawn player, because if he's not, then he shouldn't be playing this way. Acerbate. This is not approved by Dr. Tripchance, who mentioned that he liked to play for f4. All of our Iranian players here play the same openings. C5, knight f3. F4 is a standard Nimzo Larsen, but I don't know that it's the best move. You can play bishop e5 check like a Bogo. There's Larsen, Bronstein. And otherwise, you're transposing back with knight f3. Or, let's say it's, Nefedov's opponent, Nefedov's opponent is into c4, d4 with this wonderful bishop here at b2. So knight f3, and now bishop e5. And now, as I told Acerbate earlier, are you sure your opponent's not Acerbate here, Saeed's? Because you're supposed to play bishop d7. Acerbate did the exact same thing. Did this. It's a horrible move. Slightly different position. The knights weren't out already when Acerbate played it. And the worst thing is that Acerbate is playing it even though he doesn't know how to play d4. You understand this is a Nimzo, and it's the same-ish it's disrespecting the whole opening. It's the same iteration of the Nimzo. But at least in Asturbate's case, there was a game where almost the same thing happened, right? Let's say it was like this: c5, e3, bishop e5, a6, takes, and what ended up happening was Asturbate played knight f3, bishop g4. But I told him, look, dude, there was a game where black played in a smarter way, I thought. If you're going to do this, at least, you played like an f3 Nimzo. And so there was one game where black played f6, but this makes sense. At least that bishop will stay open, and black can play for e5. I think that's a better chance, really. So in our game here, bishop e5, the knight's already on f6, so he can't play an f3 type of Nimzo. Not immediately. So after this, he's playing a weird sort of Zamish. But what can black do to fight for control of e5? Black has to achieve some way play for control of e5. And what's he going to do? Knight d7, f6. So you played knight e5, and this was played by some good players. But it's not the only option. I'm wondering, what would Aaron Nimzovich play, This is straight up Nimzovich. I think that there's a case for d3. Probably I played in this tournament. It's only me. It's only me. 99. I played in this tournament. It was Linares or Ubida Open. I remember seeing Miles there. It was like February. Probably one of those tournaments. I like d3. It's very solid. This is interesting. Maybe the opponent should go for something crazy here with knight d7. Because I don't think you can do this, can you? That's not a viable option. You think there's something with bishop takes g7? But I think he has this move. It's sophisticated. The players here weren't strong enough to find this move knight d7. But maybe you have something with queen h5. For example, queen h5. They have to take. And then you could take back with the bishop, I guess, and just sit. I mean, black doesn't really want to play g6. They could play g6. But do they really want to play g6? Objectively, I don't know. They can try to do this, is what I'm saying. Like, build a wall, build a bear workshop. I wonder about knight d7. Why isn't the computer finding knight d7 on its own? It's like got some kind of bias. Now, if you let it run to depth 17, is the third best move. Interesting. h5 is the best move. That's insane. h5 with the idea of bishop g4. No, it's starting to come. It's starting. You see, nobody could find this. Unless you want to do like a Tau like sacrifice or something. Asturbate would play knight f7. But I think knight d7 is a good move, man. It might cast some doubt on knight e5. It's possible knight e5 is not the best move. That's why I trust Miles. He was so strong, dude, positionally. I mean, and technique. You know, this is a very simple, classical kind of Nimzovich position. We don't have to do anything fancy. Some people even played h3. That's kind of extreme. I don't love that. Okay, anyway, knight e5, queen c7, and then you played d3. So please share your thoughts on this line. Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I think there's a question only there, you know. Black normally would do like what? e6, he's a tempo down. Well, first, yeah, now he needed to defend the pawn. He can do g6 now. And that's what Li Chao's opponent did. It makes sense. Knight d2, bishop g7, f4. And now this thing starts to crop up, you know, maybe some kind of counter pin. That's the question. Black played a5, but I mean, do we really have time for that? It thinks black's better after knight g4, damn. So white made a mistake here. Whatever happened to Li Chao? So it looks like this is actually a mistake. f4 is actually a mistake. Well, I'll tell you the truth, man. I mean, going back to the beginning, I say don't play knight e5. You know, it's better to not play knight e5. But having played knight e5, he plays queen c7. You could play f4 immediately, or you could just castle. Yeah, this may be like not so simple. I think there's a question about whether that knight is meant to be out there so early. So now g6, h5 stops knight g4, I guess. Yeah, h5 is weird. No one's gonna play that. He actually played that? Oh man, wow. That's very computer-like move for black. h5. I'm really shocked to see anyone actually play that move. And now you played h3. I don't know what you should do. I would freak out if my opponent played h5. Either they're a complete idiot or they're cheating. You know, I don't know which one it is. But it's like when Schumacher played the h5 prematurely in the advanced Caro-Kann. It might be a really good move, but it would take a genius to figure out why. It looks like it's violating like all principles. I think the computer is looking at it differently. Maybe it wants to establish this bishop on f5. You know? I think it's carving out a place to put its bishop, basically. It sees that, the computer sees that if it plays bishop f5, you're going to punish him with g4. I would never really even consider putting the bishop on f5. I would have played g6 if I was black here. Can you do something crazy? What are you supposed to play here? f4, okay. So, I see, so maybe Li Chao went wrong with some subtle mistake. He should play f4 right away, and on bishop g7, he goes Acerbate style. You can always play like Blatny, you know. You can do queen c1 and defend your bishop on b2. This is an old Queen's Indian idea. It is basically a Queen's Indian. This is one way to solve the problem. The other way, you know, because you want to resolve this situation with a pin. Yeah, so the other way is Acerbate style, knight c3. This is pretty cool. And that gives you knight a4. Yeah. Yeah, this is strong as well. It looks good. So yeah, Li Chao played like too routinely in his game. And he was lucky there. But this feels like a computer move to me. And h3 doesn't seem like the right reaction. I don't really love h3. It weakens your position. If you ever play f4, okay, it's not terrible. It might not be easy for him to use these dark squares. Now, what are we gonna do? Asteroid would never castle. Here you can maybe you should think about not castling and stay in the center, because I think there's a lot of instances where queen side castling is fine. I mean, maybe this is your best bet. Just play queen e2 and wait. See where he's going to go. If he plays bishop d6, yeah, well then we play f4. The very standard kind of nimzo. But the h5 move concerns me. Yeah, now you got a simply normal position, and everything's fine. So, if he was really a computer, he would probably not play knight d7 now. Although black already clearly worse. It wants to play g5 there. It wants to play g5 right away. Preemptive. Yeah, you never know. He probably just got lucky with h5, and then he wasn't ever cheating. But now you have a good position. This is a funny move. It's too little, too late. The rook can't really join in. Yeah. Black is deeply in trouble. The rook is silly. So this is a lot like the Grand Prix attack game. This is very nice. Knight g5 check. Yeah. And now I don't know. Is this the best we've got? Maybe we have something better. You had to cash in here with knight h7, and you have just a small advantage now. That's a terrible move by black, fixing the structure. You might just play f5. But ultimately you could put your king on b1, I mean anything. You could play this position all day. And now, you know, bishop d2. You could play c3 on move 115. Yeah. So I think you should put your king on the other side, probably, before beginning active operations. Also, you can play bishop e1 here. Rook g1 is not so good. I think we want to go here. Then he has g5. Okay, we may not be able to get through. So you want to play rook f5, right? Okay. Here. Here. How do we make progress? It may just be a draw, but we have to keep trying. One possible plan, I don't know, could we play... How can we advance? We have to advance here. h4. Now he has g4. I see, so you'll play king h3. I see. What is my idea about trading queens? Well, I mean, the moment when did you play the queen exchange? Here. I don't really think, you know, you have to trade queens, but I also don't think it's necessarily bad. You're still better, and h4, g4 is the right plan. Why don't you play g4 now? He can pin you. He can't pin you. What does he do? Oh, you just wanted to have your rook on the right square first. Okay. Now. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, if he gets to trade the dark bishop off, he's okay, but you can avoid that exchange, hopefully. Is this a problem? It could be. It could be. If this is a problem, but you have to keep your rook on f5. You can't avoid this exchange. Now this penetrating in here is an issue. I have a bad feeling that this is a draw. So somewhere along the line, maybe it wasn't enough. But he definitely doesn't want to trade rooks. And you still managed to win this. Wow. And now it's a win. But does he have a draw here? So here it's a draw. So if he pushes the pawn, he's cut off. I mean, you're cut off. He can attack the pawn. He's only lost on f5. I thought it was a draw. It should be a draw, you know? It should be a draw. It's not enough to win. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have traded queens, but not easy to break through, even if you don't trade queens. You should maybe rearrange your rooks in a different way on the f file. But I also think you could have put your king over on the queen side. Although maybe it's not so easy. Anyway, you did manage to win this, but only after black panicked with f5. He probably thought he was lost, because your h-pawn can't be stopped. But turns out it's not so easy with your king cut off. And now you're winning. That's obvious. Okay. And then Thomas Reinson, thanks. Last game, guys, I gotta go. This was a long one. Thomas is playing white against Sack Rook. D4, E6, C4, Knight F6, Knight F3. Anti-Nimzo Indian. Never really heard it referred to as that before. That must be some kind of Discord moderator. The anti-Nimzo Indian. Never believed the lichess opening names. And then black played A5. So this is a very rare move. In some cases, it might be useful. It's not the worst move. You can't really go wrong with rook pawn moves. Completely wrong with rook pawn moves. A6 is known. A5, almost a novelty. So the question is, like, how do we take advantage of this move? And I'm not sure, like, Knight C3 is necessarily the right way. I'm not sure if there's an easy way to take advantage of this move. But maybe could we play, like, Queen C2 and try to play for control of E4? If Queen C2... I mean, we're threatening to play E4 there. So, black is going to play... I think black is going to play D5 or bishop B4 check. And your move is quite interesting. Knight C3. Yeah, maybe Knight C3 is just as good as anything. There's a game where someone played A3. That's also interesting. Curious though, you know, like I don't know how to refute A5. Trying to think of, like, in what lines would this move be really useless. Commonly played in Bogo, Catalan positions, not so much in the Nimzo. So maybe your move makes sense. I had a Nimzo against Alexander Golding once, where I got in big trouble because of A5. In any kind of double pawn position, the backwardness on the B file feels worse. I kind of like your move, actually. I think maybe this is actually best. Allowing him to play the Nimzo and saying that, okay, A5 is a bad kind of inflexible move. So if he plays this, by the way, Golding had a brilliant game he played against me in the U.S. Championship in like 2002, where it went like it was a BOGO actually, not an IMSO, but somehow he went bishop g5, and so in this type of position, I didn't really want to play this type of structure where this square is weak. I would normally play h6 and try to like castle queenside or something. But I don't want to put my king over here necessarily. And I just felt like a5 is a very weakening move for black that I would normally refrain from playing unless white played a4. So, yeah. I mean, the point being that, like, if black plays bishop b4, I don't think you should play bishop d2. I think you should probably play bishop g5. Or just simply like queen c2 or something. So, anyways, or you could even play a3. This is not as stupid as what we were just looking at. This is more justified because a5 is kind of weakening for black. So probably knight c3 is best, and then black plays d5. Okay, so you just got a5 randomly, still, you know, irrelevant or not relevant to the position. And now you played bishop g5. That looks good. How is he going to make a5 great again? I think bishop g5 makes sense. If you take here, if he takes here, do you play e4? Queen a4 check, e3? What's our move? e4 is the sharpest. We're threatening bishop takes c4. And it's hard for black to justify the move a5. You can't hang on to the, he can't hang on to the pawn. So this looks good, and it's hard to justify a5. I think his best is just bishop e7. That's what he did. And now he should follow up with like b6, probably a b6, bb7, sort of play it like a Queen's Gambit where he just played a5, but the a5 should cost him. You know, it should be like kind of a weakening move for black in general. e3 is fine. Castles, bishop e2. I mean, this is controversial now. I think you have options. What happens a lot is that we'll do bishop takes f6, and we can kind of gain a tempo on the fact that black hasn't played h6. So for example, bishop f6 takes, bishop d3. I'm not sure about this. It's an option. Or maybe we do, yeah, bishop f6, go here. He can take on c4. And then he has like c5, but I mean, this is weird, you know? It's not going to make sense. But anyway, let's see what you did. Okay, e3, castles, and I think like if you're going to put the bishop somewhere, you should put it on d3. Why e2? I don't see the advantage of going here necessarily. Maybe in this type of thing, your bishop's better on e2 in some cases, but why? Why? Because like later, why is the bishop better here? I don't know. To break the pin, bishop g4. To go here with the knight. Why is bishop e2 better than bishop d3? To keep d4 better protected. E2 doesn't lose the tempo on d takes c4. How are you planning on getting the pawn back? If you're not going to take it with the bishop shocky, you're still going to have to take it back. What are you going to do? Magically make it disappear or something? it doesn't get hit. You're trying to say it doesn't get hit by the capture on c4, but still. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that black takes here on c4. Now you could theoretically play knight e5. But I don't know, maybe it's good. If it's good, it's good. That's what they told me at chess school. Maybe it's something really deep. A5 sucks. It's a kind of lame move that doesn't contribute to black's position. But at the same time, it's a minor factor and it's not totally destroying his game. But I'm thinking here black should probably just chill, and now what's he supposed to play? This could actually come in handy too. For example, b6 bishop f3 is very strong. So it looks like d takes c4 is just bad anyway for black. I think ultimately it probably doesn't matter, especially with a5. Either way, it looks like the capture on c4 is just bad. Here, true, you'd have to take with the bishop, but I guess, yeah, here's his best shot. You have a point with this bishop e2. It might actually be relevant. Look, castles. It might be relevant. If he takes, you have knight e5 here. Looks pretty good. I think his best chance would be like c5, but it looks very dubious to me. You're much better. So, on bishop d3, maybe he should play this and follow up with b6, and still white's better. Saeed says it covers g4. But I guess now our argument would be, then, if you play bishop e2, he shouldn't play d takes c4. He should play b6. And that's that. This is the problem. You're going to pay a price. Either way, as Arthur Bisgeier said, he pays your money and he takes your choice. If you put the bishop on e2, there's a way that black can play that's better against that. If you put the bishop on d3, there's going to be a way that's better against that. So I think here, black's best plan is b6. And, you might have some tricks. There's one really nice trick, I suppose, where you would have, like, if black were to fall asleep at the switch. I've never seen this happen in a game, but bishop f6, bishop f6, cd5, ed5, knight d5. I don't think I've ever seen this trap actually, like, transpire in a game. But you would have queen takes bishop f3, take his bishop on a8. I don't know if black could possibly trap the bishop with like c6 or something, but I would doubt it. It doesn't quite work. Ooh, this is okay for black. Queen b5, bishop a8, and bishop takes c5. Huh. So it's not so clear. Anyway, just an idea. An idea, if there's any way we can tactically take advantage of black. h6 is a blunder anyway. But alright. So let's see what happened. You went bishop e2, and then he plays knight c6. So this is a weird move that's usually not good. But in a way, I think with a5, it has a kind of Rogozin feel. It may not be so bad under the circumstances. I still think that he should play b6. So he goes knight c6. Again, if d takes c4, I like knight e5. And I think you have a good game in this position. No question. Here is a different story. Castles. And then he plays knight e4. And now we probably have to consider our options. Nefedov still in the house. There was a famous game where Larson once did like g5 in a queen's gambit, I remember. That was like an exchange position. I mean, you always have to consider moves like bishop f4 to keep pieces on board when you have like a space advantage. but this is pretty much standard. Bishop takes e7. And now, queen takes is possible. I don't know if you realized it or not, but this is a lot like a normal Lasker variation. The thing is, after takes, I don't think that black... I don't think... No. I don't think that a5 is helping black here. You know, I think a5 is a very detrimental move for black in this type of Lasker variation. This only weakens black along the b file. This doesn't do anything positive. He's going to regret having played a5 there. So knight takes is probably right. He doesn't want to have to take with knight on c3. Now if you take on e4, I don't know. You don't have to take on e4 here. What would Dr. Botvinnik play? Dr. Botko. I mean, queen c2 looks like very correct. And what would black play? I mean, after knight takes c3, white is better. Not a lot better, and your bishop's fairly passive at e2. You can take back either way. So I think that most people would probably play f5. But then he has like an ugly looking stone wall. So this is really the critical moment for you. You can also play rook c1, obviously. But not a particularly exciting move, because it doesn't really threaten anything. At least with queen c2, we're threatening his e4 knight. He has to do something. But this is completely dependent on the result of this four sequence now. Your knight gets trapped on e5. e1's too passive. You have to play this. Now his e-pawn is under siege. So now he has to play f5. And the question is, how bad is black's position after f5? I don't think that a5 is helping too much. Critical idea for you would be f3, destroying said center. If f3, does he have anything crazy like f4, or does he just take? And if takes, white is slightly better, but I don't know how big your advantage is. Let's see. Very small. Very small edge for white. So maybe f3. Computer's coming up with nothing better, which gives me a bad feeling. So it may be that you should have played queen c2. Computer actually likes it better. This rook c1 too, but this is important. So you have a very small edge here. Your edge is getting smaller and smaller. And now, you know, the key move is f3. Obviously it's not forced. You played rook c1, and it's hard for black to do anything as well. So he plays b6, and that's probably not a bad move. This is very committal, but you get this square for all of your pieces in exchange for this square. This is a completely different path to what I was recommending. But I think if you were going to play f3, you should probably play it immediately. Rook c1 doesn't strengthen f3. And it's better to play f3 when he has no means of protecting it. He has to trade off his center, obviously. If that was your plan, then do it immediately. Here, controversial, you know, c5. But, I mean, your bishop is kind of restricted. So, he goes bishop a6. Now his rook is really badly placed on a6. And his e6 pawn is weak. But he can probably defend. And this is actually a really big threat coming in there. The question is, can he defend against all of the threats that you might have here? I don't know if queen e2 is best. You can take on b6, but I don't see any reason to do it immediately. Your pawn on c5 is stronger than the pawn on b6. He could lock the position with b5. This prevents it. Okay. Queen a8. Nice defense. He's playing like Spassky. Now with queen a8. And no, f3 is very important, Tomas, because it's a fight for the center. But it's like a French defense type of move. And it's always sort of double-edged. You know, it's very hard to judge when one should play f3 or f6 in the French defense, for example. And I'm not an authority on the French defense. That's an art form. This move feels a little routine to me. Rook fd1. You know, it feels like you should be a little more. You should be a little more aggressive here. You have the c file. You have some squares to invade. Queen b5, knight c4. Rook fd1 is a little bit hope chessy. You don't like the French defense. That's alright. Just don't watch too many Feingold streams where he discourages f6. So I'm thinking, you know, can we get in here? Should we get in here? Should we play something a little more active? That would allow this. That's not good. If we go in here, he has c6. But you have this in-between move. That's weak too. Now he has knight d5. It's getting kind of tough. Okay, this feels a little slow, but maybe it's not bad. And now you took. Again, yeah, this is probably right. Now, I mean, major moment in the game at this point. Black needs to seriously think about this is the right decision, because if he takes with the pawn, he can maintain his structure. The way he takes here, he is forever going to have these two isolani. But maybe it's alright. The c7 is protected, and he has this invasion and pressure on the b file. It's not so easy for you. And he drops an exchange here after knight c4. $1 million question is why? He's overlooked it. He's played a good game. You're coming into e5, but he has a strong knight as well. So if black makes a sensible move here, I don't know where to go. b4, let's say. b4 sucks. I mean, there is no good square. Actually, there is no really good square for his rook. I mean, what should he go? Like rook c6 or something? Rook b7, maybe? It's hard. Yeah, maybe rook b7. Like, there is no optimal square. But is he really threatening to go into b4? Because then you have knight e5. Yeah, he probably is really threatening this. And then you play a3. It's not so easy. And you still might have to use f3 at some point. But this is just hanging in exchange. And you missed it. And now it's a game again. But you know, you played your move on principle, and I think you're looking at c7. You're looking at the other fork here. So you're a little too focused on your ideas, you know. So when he blundered, you didn't even consider it. Now you're covering this too, which is another reason to play knight e5. You were defending against his threat of coming in there. So it's like your move was still not bad, but it wasn't as good as capturing, obviously. It felt like you were just following through on your original plan too much and not really calculating, and you have enough time. Yeah, at this point he's in trouble. And maybe he can play, like, yeah, down a pawn. Does he have to? Does he have to do what he did, though? Because if rook c5 is too strong. Is this threat's just too much? It's too much. I think this is the right move, the best chance. He's down a pawn. And now he dropped a piece. So after pawn takes, he's on b2. You have to recapture with a rook. Sorry. Rook takes d3. But okay, he has a strong queen on d5. He's only one pawn down. He has some pressure here along the b file. This is not that easy for white to win. You know, you should win. You have better structure, you're up a pawn, but you're going to have to play, you know, well. Not a no-brainer, and never easy winning a pawn-up heavy piece ending. Never, you know. Even though you're a pawn-up with a better structure, he has pressure on your backward pawn as well. And you got to admit that his queen on c5 is very powerfully placed, and f5 gets control of the center. So it's not so easy. You see, evaluation is plus 1.7. 1.5 is like the borderline until I would say like positions are still a draw. So this guy he's right on the borderline of a position that is objectively, you know, one could draw with like perfect play. He's still not completely lost. That's the point here. And you know, so it's a really tragic blunder for him with queen b3, and now he's just done. Yeah. So piece up, no question. Maybe objectively, I don't know, play h4 instead of h3, but it really doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. Good game. All right, guys. I'm not going to finish this like an acerbate game. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm going to be back. I'll be back definitely on Sunday with our simul stream. Thanks to all of you for submitting the games. Good analysis tonight. And you know, maybe I'll surprise you with another stream one of these days. We're going to try to get another stream going. I don't know yet when it's going to be, but for now, that's it. And see you Sunday for our weekly simul. Thanks, Saids and everybody. Tomas, acerbate, Nefidov. Shout out the little Nefidovs. And take care, guys. See you on Sunday. Mr. Coffee. Mr. Slow for the excellent Kubner game. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.